Hello, join me today in walking the battlefields of Guadalcanal. I'm going to be looking at a place called Coffin Corner. It's a place involved in October 1942. The scene of the largest Japanese attack on the island and one of the probably least visited places. So I hope you enjoy it. Alright, as mentioned in my introduction, this place is walking across is called Coffin Corner. It's a place involved in the October Japanese offensive. Like most of the large Japanese attack, there were 3 on the island. Every time the Japanese attacked, they had diversionary attack. Well, the scene I'm going to show you today wasn't actually a diversionary attack, it was the main effort involving the 2nd Japanese Sendai Division. It was reported to be over 7,000 Japanese attacked this section of the line, which is the southern line the Marines held. The Japanese, when they attacked this section of the line, was on the night of October 25th and 26th. This was the second night of their assaults. The first night was October 24th and 25th. Now that was involving Lieutenant Colonel Chesty Puller's 1st Battalion 7th Marines. And also, which probably a lot of you will probably know anyway, there was a platoon sergeant named John Bassalon, machine gun platoon sergeant. So I plan on doing a separate episode just on Bassalon, and we'll go into his positions and the attack on that section of Chesty Puller's lines in more detail. This area here, Coffin Corner, like I said, was involved in the second night, the scene of the mass Japanese attack against a place known as a Jeep Trail, and I'll show you where the Jeep Trail is shortly. On the first night, part of this line was held by the Alpha Company of the 1st Battalion 7th Marines. And then the 2nd Battalion of the 164th National Guard Infantry Regiment, I believe from North Dakota. It just landed and was occupying the eastern flank on Alligator Creek. And the 2nd Battalion, one of their companies, bordered Alpha Company of the 1st Battalion 7th Marines. On the second night, the Marines were able to consolidate the line when they brought in the reserve battalion of the 164th, the 3rd Battalion, and they occupied part of the 17's lines. So after reconsolidation, it was the 3rd and the 2nd Battalion of the 164th Infantry. They occupied this position. It was subject to mass Japanese banzai attacks throughout the night of the 25th and 26th. What's very interesting, the jungle line roughly sits in the exact same spot it did in October 1942. So it's not that hard to imagine what the front line looked like and the scene of where the Japanese attacked across. So if you look across, you'll see the coconut trees. And like I said earlier, it doesn't take much imagination. If you take these coconut trees out, you'd have an open field. And I think the open field went something like 2,500 yards, or at least 2,000 yards, looking straight south. There's a combat outpost called Briggs Outpost. I wouldn't call that before the battle, but I'll talk a little bit more on that later when we actually see Briggs Outpost. It was named for the platoon sergeant. But you could see about 2,000 yards away. Apparently you could look from Briggs Outpost and look straight down to this area here. The Army called it the bowling alley because it was so flat. In fact, this area was also the scene of an airstrip. The Seabees were building the emergency airstrip located here. It wasn't in any of the official documents because it's supposed to be a secret airstrip. If you read Twining's, he was one of the staff officers for the 1st Marine Division, if you read his account, he talks in detail about the emergency airstrip. It did come to play when the Japanese, they had a code word, banzai. I guess they're very imaginative there, but they had a code word called banzai. if they took the airfield, they would announce this. And on the second night, the Japanese announced Banzai. It might have even been on the first night, but anyway, they announced Banzai over the radio that they'd come across an airfield, or the airfield where they thought was Henderson Field. It was obviously dismissed by later historians. They said, oh, you know, they were confused. Even the Japanese commanders at the time said, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They're confused. But now, a number of sources, and myself included, I think, in my opinion, that they'd reached that emergency airstrip, and they thought it was Henderson Field. But roughly, where you see the jungle line now, was the actual line that the Army occupied. And if you look out to the left, that would be all open field. There was reports that the Army found over 1,200 dead Japanese bodies in front of these lines. And in the jungle beyond, there was hundreds and hundreds. So they reckon, probably estimated over 2,000 Japanese died in these attacks. So we'll move down. Let's see if I can find a position. But around this corner is a site of 3 mass Japanese burial pits, which is the bodies were disinterred in the 1980s. This is the actual corner of the jungle, so obviously Coffin Corner is where it gets its name from. So we'll look out. This was to be looking across Marines or in the Army's fields of fire. It's hard to tell now, but like I said before, this is all open area. Back to the Army lines, which is roughly straight down this thick jungle. There's the jungle line. So the jungle line had bunkers, and out in front of 30 to 40 yards were barbed wire aprons. I think this might be a bunker position. It's around the corner. If you can tell, you see the depression. Sometimes you have to have a real good look around it. I guess if you could do some metal detecting sweeps in this area, you might ascertain it better. But like I said, there used to be remnants of the barbed wire here, but the locals and tourists have taken them home. So it's possibly a bunker site there. So if that's a bunker site, looking out, that would be our field of fire there, right across. I've actually got some photos from a home movie that one of the guys in the 2nd Battalion, 164th National Guard Regiment took. There's some good still photos in there too, and he's manning a 50 cal from a bunker, and I believe the bunker is actually from one of these positions. Either could be this position or very, very near. So what we're walking to now is a site, like I said before, the 3 Japanese large burial trenches. It was reported, because I have a small map or drawing that they gave to the Japanese excavation teams in the 80s to locate. And on each trench, they mentioned 600 to 800. That's out of each large bunker hole they took these bodies. So we're talking over 1,000, maybe even 1,500. And you'll see one there. I don't know if you're able to tell, but that's a large crater. And looks like there's a pigtail in the middle of it someone's place, which is, that's pretty good. I don't know if someone's placed that there, because I was only in here a few weeks ago and it wasn't there, so they've marked it for some reason, which it's okay. If we walk over, there'll be another large Japanese burial hole or trench down here. That one's quite clear, distinctive. Reading reports, the Army took bulldozers and dynamite, they said, blasted the holes. Pan around, probably about 70-80 meters that way is the actual corner, so they didn't have to pull the bodies or carry the bodies too far. So there's one hole, two holes, and locals have a little track, they call it, built in here. There should be another large hole to the right. We've been throwing coconut husk in it sometimes, but let's see if we can see it today if it isn't too grown up. Yeah, it's a little overgrown. As anyone knows in these tropics, stuff grows quick. There's another, I know it's hard to see, but there's another hole underneath all that grass. So it was a site of at least 1,000 to 1,500 Japanese mass burials here, which were all disinterred, I was told, in the 1980s. Now I'm making my way basically north. This is the corner itself. We'll go around and I'll show you the jeep track, which is the objective of the Japanese, to find that least path of resistance, to using Japanese tactics to concentration of force at a single point. Unfortunately for the Japanese, the Marines and the Army realized this, and the single point of avenue of approach, or likely avenue of approach, that covered it heavily with 37mm anti-tank guns located with canister shot. I had a friend here that reconstructed, he's in the police EOD squad, he reconstructed a 37mm canister they located here. On each side of the 37mm were located 50 cals and 1917 30 cal heavy machine guns and a number of smaller machine guns. And what we're looking at now, right there, is a jeep track. This is the side of the Japanese attack. This was the focus. They wanted to push their guys through this track. So today it looks like a creek line or a dried creek bed. That's due to erosion over the years, I imagine. That's where the Japanese were focusing. The Marines and the Army. They had their bunkers in this area. They had been overlooking this area, which at the time was a flat bowling alley, they called it. They could see over 2,000 yards to the combat outpost. And you read reports of the Japanese tactics. They attacked in mass, with their banzai charges, and they went straight down the road. Didn't try to deviate out, but you also got to remember there was a lot of barbed wire on both sides, a path of least resistance, right where the Marines and the Army wanted them. And they stacked them up like cordwood, they said. That was hence the name Coffin Corner, because one Marine said if he was a coffin maker, he'd make a fortune with all the dead bodies stacked in front of him. Now this is looking north. This is probably when we were earlier at Coffin Corner. I'd say this is about 700 yards south of Coffin Corner. I just stopped here and was going to let you have a look here to show you how open it is, which had been very similar to the time of the battle. Just take those coconut trees out. That's what you'd have, what it looked like. So the jungle line would have been bunkers, and the open air would have been nice and flat. The Japanese at night had to cross across that.